Hello, and welcome to Moms in Conversation. I'm Vanessa Lynch, the Pennsylvania Field Organizer for Moms Clean Air Force. Moms Clean Air Force is a national community of over 1 million parents united against air and climate pollution to protect our children's health. Today, I have moms from Ohio and West Virginia joining me to talk about air pollution and the work we're doing in our respective states to clean up the air to protect our children's health. From Ohio, I have Tracy Sabetta here. And West Virginia, we have Leah Barbor joining us. Welcome, ladies. Thanks for coming out today to chat.
Thank you.
So I thought a nice way to start the conversation would be for each of us to just share a little about ourselves and talk a little bit about the history of air pollution in our states. Tracy, do you think you could lead us off?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Vanessa. As Vanessa mentioned, I'm Tracy Sabetta, live just outside of Columbus, Ohio with my husband. I have a 21-year-old daughter who is entering, well, I guess is now knee-deep in her senior year at Ohio State. A little bit of background, my grandfather worked in the coal mines in Kentucky for years and struggled with health problems for many years thereafter. And my father worked in a chemical plant in Ashtabula, which is where I'm originally from, where the cancer rates are so high. I've lived in Ohio my entire life. I grew up on the shores of Lake Erie, and I watched so many members of my family fall to cancer or struggle with some type of lung disease. And my daughter has been pretty lucky not to have any of these health problems, but a lot of her friends have not been so lucky. When I was offered the opportunity to work with Moms Clean Air Force and trying to help all Ohio kids live healthier and happier lives, I felt like it was something I had to do to try to make some positive changes in Ohio. Ohio is still considered a coal state, even though we don't have nearly as many direct jobs linked to the coal industry as we used to. We do still have a number of very dirty coal-fired power plants that are burning in all different corners of the state. So we've come a long way, but we really have a long way to go in Ohio, and I'm looking forward to sharing with all of you some of the work that we've been doing to try to make things a little better in our state. And Leah, how about West Virginia?
Thanks, Tracy. Well, I didn't grow up here in West Virginia, but I first came to the state to attend the university, and it didn't take me very long to become enamored with the abundant beauty that the state beams from all of the natural wonders. I really began studying environmental science as the focus and began learning and discovering more about the complicated relationships that this environment and its people have with our industrial legacies of coal, also chemical manufacturing, and more presently, natural gas. And through those relationships, it's much like Pennsylvania and Ohio. Industrial pollution is deeply woven into the fabric of our state. And our state is also really deeply richly steeped in Appalachian culture. So a lot of folks living rurally, really close to the land. It really comprises the proud identity of a lot of West Virginia families. And it's not uncommon that this intergenerational coal mining is also a keystone component of that identity. So, the pride coming from the demanding physical labor, the courage that it takes to do that sort of work. And that's all very well respected, but unfortunately, oftentimes results in those long-term health complications that do have major consequences. And those consequences being far-reaching, affecting the quality of our air and water, and also our families to this present day.
Yeah, and in Pennsylvania, I have 2 children and a husband, of course, that I live with. My daughter is 14 and I'm an 11-year-old son. And I have, my family has lived in Pennsylvania for many generations. And I got involved with community organizing in my community, talking about the oil and gas industry here and the placement of a well pad in our residential area. But really the conversation in my part of Pennsylvania near Pittsburgh goes much farther back than that. My grandfather used to tell stories about going to work in the morning with his white button-up shirt on and coming home from work in the evening and his shirt was gray from all of the pollution. And like air pollution, like that thick, that he walked through it and his shirt was discolored by the end of the day. I actually had just read a Wall Street Journal article that talked about how in Pittsburgh, there was a time when streetlights were needed during the daytime. So definitely Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh have a long history of steel and factories and coal, and now the oil and gas industry have become a big part of our story when it comes to air pollution and the things that we need to be looking at and working on to move forward. Tracy, could you tell us a little bit about what the air is like now and where we are in Ohio, and then Leah in West Virginia when it comes to climate change and greenhouse gases and the work that we're doing?
Sure. Here in Ohio, we're currently home to more than 103,000 oil and gas production facilities, and that would include wells, compressors, processing stations. We rank first in the nation for total residents that are living within a half a mile of these oil and gas facilities, and second for the total number of students who are attending school or daycare or college within a half a mile of those facilities. Something that I just read the other day was that in 2019, natural gas generated more of Ohio's in-state electricity than coal for the first time ever. That was a surprise to me. I know we rank among the top 10 states for generating the most electricity, and we're among the top 5 for total electricity demand. So Ohio is a small country in and of itself sometimes when it comes to the way that we generate our power and use it. And unfortunately, those numbers all come with consequences. We have more than 200,000 children in Ohio with asthma. That number has stayed around that for probably the last 5 or 6 years. And we are fortunate, though, that our state climate office is housed in the Bird Polar Research Institute at Ohio State University. So we have very up-to-date climate impact information pretty regularly now reported. And our climate impacts are including extensive flooding that caused road closures here in central Ohio in March of this year, and a real increase in the tick population in forested areas in Ohio, which has led to a corresponding uptick in Lyme disease. We've seen changes in rainfall patterns that have caused heavier rain in the spring and fall that resulted in less time to plant and harvest crops, which, you know, right now is really the last thing that we need to see with But the most severe impact that we're currently seeing is a rise in overnight temperatures. Rather than temperatures decreasing overnight, they're actually staying much higher. We're actually seeing an increase in the number of days where the low doesn't drop below 80 degrees. And that leads to huge increases in electric bills, an overworked air conditioning system, if you're one of the fortunate ones that has air conditioning, and real negative health impacts on our most vulnerable populations in Ohio. And that's why clean energy has got to become more of a priority for our energy policy in the future in this state, because the impacts are not, 10, 20, 50 years away from us right now. We are seeing them right now. We're feeling those impacts in Ohio right now. I'm sure, Leah, you're probably seeing something similar in West Virginia.
Absolutely. Yeah, with respect to what you were just saying about oil and gas exposure to that pollution, we also have wells spread throughout the state, and West Virginians are also bearing much of the health risks that are caused by the oil and gas industry's air pollution. In addition to the climate exacerbating pollutant methane, it's well known that oil and gas sources, they spew out toxic chemicals and other smog forming pollutants. And children are especially vulnerable to this type of air pollution. Here in West Virginia, we have 890 schools that are located within a half mile of oil and gas operations. And nearly 10,000 West Virginia children per year will suffer asthma attacks due to the ozone from this industry. So the reality that we're forced to cope with every day is that individuals in most of the state are directly affected by this form of pollution, just going about their daily lives. And so, according to the State of the Air report by the American Lung Association, particle pollution is steadily decreasing here in West Virginia, but ground level ozone or smog is on the rise. The cause of this increase is also in part due to one of climate change's most known effects, which is heat. So the more heat, the more smog. And like I said, this powerful lung irritant can really dampen the quality of life for those people who have asthma, who are really just trying to make it work and go about their daily lives. And also a lot of the effects that you guys are experiencing in Ohio in real time are also those that we're experiencing here in West Virginia. You know, our populations of insect-borne disease transmission are also increasing. So Lyme is definitely on the rise due to warmer temperatures. And, you know, due to the topography of our state here in West Virginia, that just having really dramatic high ridges and low valleys, these rainfall events have really serious damage due to our outdated infrastructure. You know, they're fast moving, high stakes impacts, they're displacing families, they're having really devastating effects on our communities. And, you know, one thing from my experience, having my own children, talking to community members, is seeing that, you know, for children to really thrive, they need to feel safe in their environment, and having uncertainty around they're going to have to move or their home is at risk for certain, you know, periods of time during the year, or maybe we're experiencing droughts and our gardens aren't growing. You know, these are just a lot of impacts here in West Virginia that we're trying to move through together as a community.
Yeah, I really was excited to talk with you ladies today because it's clear to me that the things that we're experiencing in Pennsylvania are very similar to the things that both of you have described experiencing. You know, so our state of the air report for the Pittsburgh area actually said that we're tied for 8th as the most polluted city in the nation for year-round average levels of fine particle pollution. And actually outside of California, we're the only metro area included in those top 9. So we really have not just a history of polluted air here, but a continuing experience of it. Over Christmas Eve this year, we had the strangest weather event that I had ever seen in our area. It was called a temperature inversion. And basically we walked out of Christmas Eve to the densest fog I had ever seen. And a temperature inversion is basically where normally the atmosphere has warmer air that makes sort of a lid or traps pollutants close to the ground in a temperature inversion. And so pollutants were just sort of sitting at ground level for an extended period of time with no way to get away from them or to have it dissipate. And it was really a bizarre experience to walk outside and know that you were breathing in this very dense, polluted air. And unfortunately, those things are becoming more and more the norm here. Climate change is a serious issue for us in Western Pennsylvania and throughout Pennsylvania. The oil and gas industry has placed well pads and all of their infrastructure throughout residential communities, near people's homes, near schools. And because of that, the emissions from those well pads are even more problematic they're even more problematic. And those emissions include volatile organic compounds, which are serious pollutants that affect our public health and can cause things like asthma and cancer, but also one of the main component of natural gas is methane. And methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas that causes serious climate change concerns. Both of you had sort of talked about ticks and the increase in those in our communities. I read a statistic the other day that said that we have triple the number of Lyme disease cases over the last 10 years, or than we had 10 years ago. So we've seen a huge increase in the pollution and impacts on Lyme disease and tick-borne illness and all the things that that really have been predicted as being the next set of concerns for all of us as climate change becomes our daily reality. Tracy, maybe you can talk about what we're doing and what we're working on across our states as far as making progress on working on air pollution in our region.
Sure. Well, as obviously both of you know, and a lot of our moms know, we've been struggling to really get any kind of activity at the federal level. And last year, Ohio unfortunately saw the passage of an energy bill that gutted our state's successful renewable energy and efficiency standards. So a lot of our work had been focused on local level policies. Then on July 21st, we woke up to some news that would change the course of our work for probably the rest of the year, and who knows for how much longer. We have been working very hard now to secure a repeal of House Bill 6, which is the bill that passed last year. It is now an energy bill at the center of a $61 million bribery scandal. Larry Householder, who's our former Speaker of the House, and 4 of his associates were arrested on July 21st and have now been indicted for creating multiple dark money organizations to push through this bill at the request of First Energy. The bill would have rewarded First Energy with a $1.5 billion bailout of 2 of their failing nuclear power plants and 2 of the region's dirtiest coal-fired power plants, one of which was actually located in Indiana. So all of this while gutting our successful renewable energy and efficiency programs. So we have been working with our members to reach out to legislators and Governor Mike DeWine asking for a full repeal of this bill. It was a bad bill before the corruption, and now it's obviously even worse. We've been conducting social media campaigns focused on demanding leadership and taking this opportunity to really bring Ohio out of the Larry Householder era of corruption and strong-armed politics. This is something that's been going on for a while in Ohio, and this is our opportunity to demand better. Ohio legislators have a choice to make as far as we're concerned. They can reward the corruption and the failed energy sources of the past, or they can create good jobs and protect air for our children and grandchildren. And right now, our kids are seeing that bribery and corruption are winning the day in Ohio. We had expected to see a repeal happen very quickly. We had heard from some Senate leadership that they thought this would be something that could happen prior to the election, but it just hasn't happened yet. The House is holding committee hearings on some repeal legislation. There's invited testimony going on, but we're not taking that step forward. We're not demonstrating to Ohioans that we're not going to stand for this kind of corruption, and we're not going to reward the kind of polluting energy sources that we have seen in the past. So that campaign is going to continue on straight through Election Day and thereafter if we don't have a repeal. But we do have some good news. At the more local level, things are looking a little better. Ohio moms have endorsed issue 1, which will be on the Columbus ballot in November. And this issue would institute the Columbus Community Choice Aggregation Plan. And this plan ensures that all energy in Columbus would be coming from 100% renewable sources by 2022, with the city being carbon neutral by 2050. This program also includes working toward meeting that goal with in-state electricity generation only. So for the cities that have already adopted clean energy goals, a lot of them have been getting that clean energy from other states, buying the RECs that come with that. But this would actually move us toward in-state generation, which is something we've been trying to do for a very long time. So there are plenty of opportunities to get involved with both of these efforts. So I would suggest just reaching out over the Clean Air Moms Ohio Facebook group to find out more and get involved. We need as many voices out there as possible. So Leah, what are you working on in West Virginia?
So here in West Virginia, our work is really focused on amplifying voices of families and community members who have air quality and climate safety concerns to our elected officials. So like Senator Joe mentioned, we do this by way of making phone calls, by writing letters. We call it 5-minute climate action, and we really put a lot of effort into this form of meaningful collective action, as we regard it as one of the ways that we can positively encourage our electeds to take meaningful action on climate in response. So yeah, coming out of this pandemic, here in West Virginia, and I think extended to our tri-state region, as we're considering what long-term economic solutions look like, we're working to encourage our local and federal officials to really prioritize efforts that will truly rebuild better, not only providing sustainable jobs for the people who live here, but that will also consider their health, the health of our environment, and our children's futures. Recently, Moms Clean Air Force West Virginia, our chapter here, we joined the West Virginia Climate Alliance and released a citizen's guide to climate change. So the purpose of this guide is it was meant as a resource to kind of like open the dialogue, to as a public education resource for all West Virginians on the causes, impacts, and potential solutions, of climate change. Solutions that center around environmental justice and a just transition to clean energy for impacted workers and also for frontline communities. Also recently here in West Virginia, we have testified alongside many wonderful organizers and members from around the nation on the EPA's particle pollution standards, and also at the ozone, at the hearings for particle pollution and ozone standards as well, to urge them to strengthen the standards in order to protect our families. We've also provided comment to the West Virginia DEP Division of Air Quality on its recent rulemaking regarding greenhouse gas emissions from coal-fired electric utility generating units. So just again, urging them to strengthen protections for our families. Also here in West Virginia, we're having conversations around our unique opportunity that lies in our capacity to help fight climate change through investing in natural solutions. I think it's something like 87% of our state is forested, and there is more and more emerging research and recognition for the Appalachian Highlands in regard to resilience to climate change and its most serious impact. So meaning, we can refocus our energy on these natural solutions by reducing the threat of climate change, generating timber products, supporting clean water, wildlife habitats, and all while fostering economic diversification. So that's what's been going on here in West Virginia. How about you, Vanessa?
Well, I would just like to say great work, ladies. So for us, what we've really been working on in Pennsylvania, one of the biggest things is working on decreasing our methane emissions. So when I was a kid, and maybe this is dating myself here, we always talked about carbon dioxide as, the greenhouse gas. And of course, carbon dioxide is a huge greenhouse gas polluter, but methane is also a huge greenhouse gas pollutant that causes serious harm. And with Pennsylvania now being the second largest producer of natural gas, whose primary component is methane, this is becoming an increasingly important conversation in Pennsylvania. We have to include methane air pollution in our conversations. And in Pennsylvania, we're starting to do just that. So at the state level, we have been working on regulations for methane air pollution when it comes to existing oil and gas sources. So this is a great move forward that Governor Wolf, our governor, has really taken as an important part of his climate legacy, that we really work on our greenhouse gas emissions. A couple methane facts. Methane is responsible for 25% of current climate change and is about 86 times more potent in the first 20 years after release than carbon dioxide. So when we talk about sort of this short timeline that we have to really make impacts in our greenhouse gas emission and in our ability to make a big difference in climate change, methane is a big part of that story. And in Pennsylvania, we recently did some analysis was released that said that we're releasing around 16 times more methane than is reported to our Department of Environmental Protection. So this issue is extremely important. And the regulation that's being put out, we're very grateful that it exists. There are a couple things that we're really working to tighten up to make the regulation as protective as we can. Two of those things in particular that we've pointed out in our methane safeguards that are being considered that we really feel have to be addressed. The first is that we should include low producing wells in our methane regulations. Low producing wells are about 50% of the emissions of methane that are released in the state come from low producing wells. And so if we choose to not include those in our regulations, we choose to ignore 50% of the emissions. So we've really been working to encourage that low producing wells have to be a part of this process and have to be a part of our conversation and what we regulate in Pennsylvania. The second really important thing that we've been talking about with the regulations that are being considered are a decrease in inspections if the site is doing well with not having leaks. And unfortunately, what research has shown is that leaks happen randomly. And it doesn't matter how good your record is of not polluting. We have to check frequently in order to find leaks. And that's just the reality. And leak detection and repair, which is what it's called whenever you look for those leaks, is actually very much up to the task. So we're really working hard to make sure that the methane and commingling volatile organic compounds, those really health impacting things that are released into the air, are being addressed in our state. Also, another thing that we're working on that's really exciting focuses more on the carbon dioxide side of the picture, right? So if you talk about the two largest greenhouse gases, they're methane and carbon dioxide. So Pennsylvania is looking to become a part of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI as it's called. And RGGI is this really amazing multi-state effort designed to cut carbon pollution from power plants across 10 of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. And basically it accomplishes that by saying, hey, we're all gonna emit under a certain level of carbon dioxide each year from our fossil fuel-fired power plants. And with each year, that number decreases. So it's this really natural way of slowly getting ourselves to pull away from carbon-emitting fuel-fired power plants and begin to really look for ways to take our power sector into the future and into a future that really is about renewable energies and pulls away from the major greenhouse gas polluting power generation that's been such a part of the history of Pennsylvania. So what would you guys say, or what would be your message for parents or other parents in your states for how they can get involved and what they can be happy about and what they can be working on with us?
Well, I will say for Ohio, and I don't think that it's going to sound dramatic, and I'm going to try not to overstate it, but we are really at a crossroads in Ohio in deciding our energy future. No one thought we were going to have an opportunity to repeal this awful energy bill. So we were handed this opportunity to repeal House Bill 6. But even more than just repealing the bad bill, this is our chance to start looking at an equitable, comprehensive energy strategy that's going to reduce pollution and reduce cost. And I think for the first time, ensure our policies are more focused on people than utilities. When it comes to energy in the state, that's something that we've struggled with for as long as I've been working in the field. Or we can simply accept more of the same, which is where we are. But this is our chance, Vanessa, to try to brighten things up a bit. This is really our chance to paint a brighter future for our kids and grandkids in Ohio. But we have to make sure as moms that our elected officials know that we're watching and we're going to demand better for them. They are our leaders and we should be able to expect them to lead. So I am asking all of the moms, parents, grandparents, anyone who cares about a child in Ohio to join us and make sure that their voices are heard. We're not going to get this chance again. So as I mentioned before, Clean Air Moms Ohio and our Facebook group please reach out. Let us know that you would like to get involved. There are so many different things that can be done, whether it be making phone calls on social media, writing letters. It's a long list between the state energy policy and this great opportunity we have to make sure that we're getting 100% of our energy from renewable sources in the city of Columbus with that issue 1 on the November ballot. There's not a shortage of things that we can be doing together, and we really hope everyone will join together to make sure that our voices are heard. Leah?
Yeah, I'm going to echo that, Tracy. I think it's really important that we band together, that there's a sense of unity. I think in some states where we have more nuanced relationships with, power dynamics and where we get our industry and energy from, we just simply have to stop the argument. We're at the point now where it really doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, and so often, as Moms Clean Air Force organizers and members, we refer to ourselves as mom partisan. And that for me, like being a mom of 2 young kids, my daughter Florgine is 4 and my son Aiden is 2, it really resonates with me in a way that, I feel like that's the reason why moms are such a force in this arena. Our fervor, our tenacity toward clean air and climate justice really seems to come from a place of like primal instinct. We have a keen sense for when things are going awry, and that passion just really seems to increase when our children are like unnecessarily hurt or in a vulnerable situation that is also unnecessary. So I think coming together and recognizing that like this is all of our issues and finding solutions to these problems are urgent priorities for us all. So with the opportunity that you guys have there in Ohio, that we have to rebuild better coming out of COVID and to inform some of the more federal-based legislation that's coming up here, we need to work together. We need to be informed. We need to be present and be prepared. There are solutions to these issues. And, we as consumers, we really can't take anything for granted anymore. We all have an obligation to ourselves and to our families. We're all busy, so I know that looks different for everyone. But as our regional field director, Elizabeth Brandt, recently told me, no one can speak for you or your family. Even if you're not the biggest climate expert, you're still the one who's aware of what your family needs. So finding your own courage and not being afraid to step up and get involved and really make sure that your voice is heard is really the best thing that we can be doing right now.
Well said, ladies. I know here in Pennsylvania, we have an opportunity to make some really meaningful progress on climate change. I mean, it's really exciting to look at how we're working on 2 of the biggest greenhouse gas pollutants, methane and carbon dioxide, in our state right now. Governor Wolf has determined that his climate legacy is important to him, and I am very appreciative of the work that's being done in our state to look at the health of our children and really consider how it's dependent on what hard work we accomplish on these issues. We have to, as moms, keep our voices loud and clear when it comes to our insistence that PA work on climate change in meaningful ways. We clearly are a big part of the conversation when it comes to how much we're emitting and how much we're polluting. And so we in Pennsylvania have to be a big part of the conversation about how we fix that and how we move forward. Great ways to get involved are all of the ones that Leah and Tracy talked about, but in Pennsylvania in particular, with the methane regulations that are going through, we have petitions related to that, encouraging that the loopholes that I mentioned be closed, and that we really make this regulation as strong and protective as we can, that those safeguards are really absolutely important to our children's future. And then on the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, we'll be having opportunities this fall to give testimony at a hearing related to Reggie, and that will be an amazing opportunity for moms to have a powerful voice in Pennsylvania for our children and for what we know is right when it comes to making real change. So those are some great opportunities. And I would say, always visit our Moms Clean Air Force Facebook page and feel free to email all of us. I know we're all here for all of you. It was wonderful getting together today with you amazing moms. It's always so refreshing to hear all the incredible things that we're doing in our states and the progress that we're making. I'm so excited about the work we're doing to protect our children's health and address climate change. And I just want to say thanks to all of you who joined us today as well. And we hope that you reach out and get involved and vote. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.